Good evening. Welcome to March 4th Planning Commission meeting. Tonight we'll have a repeat presentation of the presentation that was made to the trustees on March 26th by the firm of Muchodo and Silvetti Associates, architects that are contracted to come up with design plans for the restoration renovation of the old parish building on 25 Jobs Lane, which is the present-day Southampton Center. The Southampton Center has been an entity that has been established as far as incorporating into a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It's a cultural entity. We are the Founders Committee, which was created by Mark Epley, the mayor, a group of about 15. Have been diligently working both at developments towards the design through the architect and more so on the programming aspects. And tonight's presentation is going to be focused more on the architectural developments, but concurrent and equally involved are the developments on the programming. And this summer we will be presenting a sample programming in both the existing building and the grounds of the old museum, or the Southampton Center, I will call it from this point on. The firm of Muchodo and Silvetti was contracted towards the end of last summer. They've been working hard on this thing, on the preliminary design phase of it. And this is a group of about more than a dozen different consultants, all sorts of different engineering firms, restoration firms, electrical engineering, structural engineering, mechanical engineers, and the architects themselves. And I'm just going to go through the presentation that they made to the trustees tonight and walk you through that. Candice, if you could just turn off that light, please. So let's start. I'm just going to set the guiding principles for this job, which was first and foremost the preservation, restoration, and adaptive reuse of the historic Atterbury building, and creating a dynamic center for the arts for both year-round and summer residents. This was a major focus, not to design this center just around the summer activity, but for a year-round activity. And furthering the vision of the Village Center Master Plan to integrate the grounds with the new parish lane and pedestrian circulation. As the slideshow goes on, you'll get much more information on that and how this building is integrated into the village overall. Where we are right now is that as far as consensus on the vision for the Southampton Center is the community focus and how we can engage and involve the community. Creation of flexible spaces that can accommodate many different kinds of programming to include performance, visual, and educational activities. We did select an architect, the firm of Muchodo and Silvetti Associates from Boston. And have been reaching out to various cultural groups, both on the East End and New York City, to engage and partner with them in these programmings. Where we are right now is that we've received various inputs from the technical consultants, theater experts, and landscape architects, not to include the architects themselves. Also, as a partner in this endeavor, we have engaged the Peconic Public Broadcasting, which will be involved as far as representing itself on the site physically. And tonight's presentation, we will discuss the direction that the design has taken as far as these developments. And we have also and continue to take input from the community and stakeholders on this task. The next steps is to take this conceptual design through the schematic design phases and develop it further. Budgeting is part of it. As soon as we develop the schematic designs. We're going to put together the budget associated with that. The funding for this is going to be privately collected. We will be putting our efforts towards that this summer and ongoing towards fundraising. And I would engage and ask all to keep up with that on the village's website as far as the latest inputs and updates. The Southampton Centre is going to be discussed first and foremost in the context of the village, which is the project context and the existing conditions. Next, we'll go to the site access issues. Third item would be restoration and preservation strategy, to be followed by the initial design strategy, and then we'll get into further detail both on the theater design and the landscape design. So let's move on to the project context. This is an aerial view, a fantastic shot, thanks to Google, of the facility in the heart of the village. Let's talk a little bit about the history of it and where it sits in the village. What you see over here is the site and its boundary, which incorporates the arboretum, the parish arboretum, as it is today. It's in the its entrance sitting on Job's Lane, and not its original entrance, but its last entrance to date. And it sits in the heart of this mega block, which is and has been the focus of our master plan developments. One of the key aspects of the master plan was to break up this mega block into two blocks through creation of a new street that connects Nugent Street to Windmill Lane through this block, which you can see is this blue line over here, starting from West Main Street, and I'd call this Parish Lane for the time being, which is right now part of the parking, but this is going to be an official street, mapped new village street and lane. The parking is off of this and will maintain and remain as is, with the exception that with the master plan's approval, the parking will extend itself to consolidate private parking in the back and rear of all the properties that are sitting on Nugent and Windmill. So future development or redevelopment of all these properties will push them to the street with their rear yards being incorporated into the village's parking. You can see how the Southampton Centre on 25 Job's Lane is so critically and centrally located in relationship to numerous other cultural institutions. Primary among them is the Southampton Historical Museum, the First Presbyterian Church, the Rogers Memorial Library, which moved to the location of the Nugent and Windmill Lane intersection, the Cultural Centre in Southampton, the Shinnecock Nations Cultural Center down the road on Hill Street, the African American Museum of the East End, which is in development at the moment, Stony Brook, Southampton, the movie theater are among some of these institutions that basically will be all tied together as part of what we consider a village arts district. In addition to that, you can see the network of pedestrian infrastructure in the village existing today and how this will be further expanded and tied to the Southampton Centre. The potentiality of all these pedestrian walkways, the new street to the north, and providing access to the building from all sides creates basically a building that is very much visible, not only from Job's Lane, but from all around it. From any angle that you look at it, this building will be very visible. And to that extent, it's almost a building in the round, where the issue of accessibility and getting access to the building is not limited to one side, but primarily all sides of it. This is an aerial view of the existing museum. And I'll talk to you, I'll present quickly a history of that. Let's move on to the next slide. The original building, which is what we call the Transept Gallery, was designed first in 1897 by Grosvenor Atterbury, the architect that Mr. Parrish used. This was basically this section over here with the main entrance on the east side of it. And that's in relationship to the rest of the existing building today. Here's a historic photograph of it before the additions both to the north and south were added. Here's another view of the original entrance on the east side. Job's Lane is down right over here, and you can see it. This was all the grounds of the Arboretum at the time. From Job's Lane, you could access through this walkway, which exists today, to the eastern entrance of the building. Later on, back in 1902, the auditorium wing was added to the north of the existing Transept Gallery, which basically is this shape highlighted over here. And that's a 3D view of it. And again, you can see in this historic photograph the relationship of the eastern entrance of the museum with the newly northern addition off of the still existing eastern fountain on the grounds. And finally, in 1913, the main gallery towards southern expansion and Job's Lane was added with a new entrance gallery on Job's Lane with a forecourt that completed the plan, the crucifix plan, and basically what at the moment was called the Parish Center of the Arts. And there's the last section added while Mr. Parrish was still alive. And this is the entrance with the forecourt off of Job's Lane, brought in a new architecture and entrance to Job's Lane. I can see the influences from the Italian Renaissance, which was basically a majority of collection that Mr. Parrish brought to this museum. Later on, back in 1956, 72, and 87, additions were added onto the building. We call them the West Annex. These were mostly functional additions. Architecturally, they're not significant. They basically address the issues of additional need for office spaces and storage for art, which basically 1950s this portion was added, and later on 72 the other one. And there's the 3D versions of it. And as you can see, as far as architectural compatibility, there's none of that.
I just have a quick question. The additions that were to the north and south, did Atterbury do those additions?
Absolutely. Atterbury did all the architectures that were implemented in the original 1897, 1902, and 1913.
Okay,
correct. Another view looking from the parking lot to these Western Annex additions. And these buildings, which basically we'll consider the museum as one building, it's actually an addition of number of different buildings. Even though the same architect Atterbury was involved in the design of it, he used many different materials. Originally, it was the wood shingle in the 1897. In 1902, it's a white brick. And finally, the famous Atterbury patterned 1913 edition that brought the addition to Job's Lane. And the 56 editions annexes are white stucco. The existing building is, I'd say that the integrity and bones of it are in pretty good condition, but there are a lot of major problems with every aspect of it. It really has not been looked at or improved or maintained throughout all these years. As you can see, the paint, the surfaces, the brickwork, all are in desperate need of work. You can see cracks in the foundation in certain areas. All the skylights are either closed up because of leaks, and again, the roofs are in very bad condition. You can see over here the roof on the 1913 edition. And this is the central section roof. And also the forecourt, the brickwork, the caps and so forth, all throughout the winters and summers and seasons have taken the toll on this section. Let's talk about site access a little bit. Again, going back to the 3D form, presently the building is accessed mainly through Job's Lane, secondary entrances to the Arboretum on either side of the main entrance on the south, and then also from the parking lot there's a path that brings you through the Arboretum and through a gate to the forecourt and then entering of the building. The other original entrances, even though one of them is operational, but they're usually closed and they're only scarcely used to admit wheelchair accessibility issues. So this is where the accesses are today, and what's the potential access or additional accesses are to improve from both the east side, from the grounds of the Arboretum, and to improve those accesses from the parking lot. The existing building entries, as we said, there's 5 of them. The main one on Job's Lane, the secondary one, which is the original entrance on the east side. This is the handicap access today. There's the staff entry on the western side, and another entrance to the library, which is actually the reading room, which is presently closed off. And these are, let's go back one slide. We're looking into the possibility how we can create these additional entrances, opening them up and making them accessible to basically handicap wheelchairs. And one of the main tasks is also to create a connection between the east side and the west side of the property and the Arboretum. And this basically is an attempt that through architecture and the main portion or transept portion of the building, we are trying to achieve that. Let's move on. So here are again the various portions of this building, which we'll call a campus of buildings that are interconnected to one another: the auditorium, the transept gallery, and the main galleries and forecourt and loggia with the entrances. Let's keep on going. So here's our restoration and preservation strategy. Again, let's move on. First and foremost, it's removal of some of the elements that were not part of the original architecture of the building, which are the additions that were made back in the 1950s and 70s, and removal of the parking from the grounds of the Arboretum. This brings the building back to its original Atterbury state, basically. Let's move on, which is what you see if you go back one slide. By taking away those additions and incorporating the grounds of the parking, basically expanding the Arboretum and bringing the building back to its original 1913 shape. So here's an elevation view of the current elevation with the 1950s and 70s additions. And next slide. And you can see that by removal of that, you're exposing the original facade of the 1902 edition and the 1897 original transept facade, which there's no photos of that at the moment. Again, this is the existing plan of the building. These are the 2 sections that were added later on, not by the architect Atterbury, and let's move on. On the interior of the building also, there are certain elements that are not original to the building, which will be removed as part of this restoration strategy, which are the shops and the separations between these shops, the walls that close off these side entrances, the ramp. There's another ramp back here on the auditorium section. The auditorium's apse itself is closed off, and that will be removed. Also, the exterior additions of the 50s and 70s will be removed, and brings back the building to, again, its original 1913 format.
The apse will be removed? Did you
No, this wall that separates the apse,
wall.
not the apse itself. No. The building itself, again, that was built in 3 different stages, is also at 3 different elevations, which is a major problem as far as accessibility. The original section is at 27'8". The auditorium drops to 26.5, and the last section is somewhere in between those two. Actually, at 27, elevation 27. You can see again the effect of some of these change of levels and the ways that they've tried to bridge these differences through ramps of this nature, which is about 10.5 inches. This is a section through the building, and you can see again variations in the floor. So one of the first tasks for the architects was that how can we make this building accessible? And through various studies, analyses, and so forth, let's move on. Oh, by the way, before I come up with the solution, also a cross-section through the building, one thing that was very informative, this is again the elevation at the transept at 27.8. You can see that on the eastern side of the building, the elevation is at 25.3, versus at the western side drops to 23.5. So the connection between the exterior and interior, there's much more of a difference between the floor levels on the west side versus the east side, hence making the east side a more easier approach for bridging that and making the building accessible. So let's move on. Again, same thing from the Job's Lane, which is a sidewalk at elevation 21. We have to get to elevation existing 27 as far as accessibility, and how that would be resolved is a concern. So let's move on. Again. So go back. So the architects basically proposed to bring the elevation of all the different levels to 27. And that would be an elevation that not only would be minimizing the difference between the exterior and the interior, but also bring all these 3 different levels into one and make them accessible. And I'll show you how they've approached that. So again, going back to the idea of the building in the round, that by creating a level floor plan on the interior and creating these various paths and access points, such as from the pedestrian path, which we finished this past summer, the parking lot access from the back, and also from Job's Lane, gives the opportunity to increase and improve and make the accesses to the building more accessible. As far as the building program, existing building is approximately exactly 19,270, which only about 3,600 of it or plus is on the second floor. About 13,000 of it is on the main floor, which is the bulk of the building. There is a small basement on the northern side of the building at 2,790 or 2,800. The proposed program, which basically is a performing arts center and a theater, increases that to by about 10,000 square feet to 30,485. Let's move on. And the breakdown of this new program, majority of it, these additions, go into both mechanical and services and support spaces for the theater, which are the green rooms and changing rooms and stage support areas and so forth. The rest of them, which are the flexible spaces, are pretty much the same. A small cafe will be introduced. The Peconic Public Broadcasting will also be partners with us in this. There's a visitor center where you can access basically various programs in the village as to what's going on, and a small area for the staff. So this is a plan and site plan of the restored 1913 building. This is the improved performance space, theater space to the north of it. These are, programmatically speaking, the areas where we need support for the theater, which are the green rooms. The strategy is that basically, if we were to draw a line separating the northern addition, which is the 1902 addition, from the rest of the building, that this portion of it to the north is Adaptive Reuse project, where we're converting the auditorium into a theater, and the southern portion of it is focusing on restoration of the existing and bring it back to its original. Laura?
Are they going to be attached?
I'll tell you as we move on as to how that's going to be worked out. So here we're addressing the issue of street frontage and accessibility again. That presently Job's Lane is the main street frontage and access point for the center. With the creation of the Parish Lane to the north, that will introduce another access point. Presently, the entry vestibule on Job's Lane is there. Let's move on. With the new street coming over there, we're introducing another architectural feature on the street to have a presence for the center on the new Parish Lane. That's also bringing all the floors to elevation 27 and making them accessible, and extending that elevation 27 all the way to the grounds to the northern property line. Now, not by a building, and I'll tell you as we move along how this will be done. But the issue being that by creating and extending this elevation 27 to the parking lot, the building will be accessible throughout. Let's move on.
What's the elevation of the parking lot?
Pardon me?
What's the elevation of the parking lot?
The elevation parking lot is slightly lower than 27, and I'll tell you how we'll bridge that gap too. So also another thing that is being proposed is that the existing auditorium being at elevation 27 will be dropped to elevation from 27 to elevation 14.5, which is a level below, which is what we call today the basement level. This way, we're first of all raking the floor of the theater, which will be what a real theater is, raked floor. And with that, we'll basically afford the possibility to provide infrastructure for the theater, such as the green rooms and all the storage facilities and additional facilities required, not on the grounds of the Arboretum, but below grade, so they won't have a presence. Let's move on. So this is exactly a programmatic distribution of these required needs for the theater space. And again, the theater wing addition. Now I'm going to talk about going back to 1902, when the northern addition was designed by Mr. Atterbury, and before the southern section was added on to. This was the layout. At that time, let's move on to the next slide. Mr. Atterbury made a proposal to Mr. Parish for a courtyard on the south side of the building. So again, go back to the slide. You can see this is the southern portion of the building with the apse, and what he proposed was to create a courtyard around that apse, including some additional buildings and grounds of the Arboretum. Let's move on. So this is what he had proposed for addition to the existing building back in 1913. This never occurred, of course. We know that he built a longer linear building that brought the entrance all the way to Job's Lane. But the architect basically is taking a page out of Mr. Atterbury's book And using the same concept of a courtyard and projecting it on a new street frontage to the north off of the existing apse of the building. So let's move on. So you can see that this courtyard is created around the northern apse in this case. With the broadcast, radio broadcast functions on the Parish Lane parking side, bordering the courtyard off of the northern apse of the existing building. Flexible spaces and a cafe are added on the either side, on the east and the west. These are very transparent spaces, all glass, so that through the glass you can see the original building again. And I'll show you some schematic drawings of that. So again, this is a conceptual 3D drawing of what we call a pedestrian plinth at elevation 27, which ties itself to a structure off of the Parish Lane, which is housing the Peconic broadcasting facilities. And through this plinth, which basically through a ramp, you bridge the gap between the parking and the plinth. Once you get onto this plinth, basically the whole building is accessible to the building. That's a one-story structure, and I'll show you some more drawings of it. Yes, one-story structure. So if we look at the breakdown of the new program, the lower level takes the majority of it, which is all the support structures for the theater. The green rooms, the storages, the offices, the bathrooms, and so on. The main floor, ground level, which is on the Arboretum, and the main building's floor plan, are the two additions to the east and the west, which are flexible spaces for educational and arts. On the western side, it's the cafe. On the northern side, it's the Peconic broadcasting functions. And pavilion addition to the western apse of the transept, which opens up the building to the grounds of the Arboretum. And then a very small addition on the second floor for offices, which basically bridges the two existing office spaces at the moment on the building. If you go back one slide, the beauty of this configuration is that basically only 25% of the new program is at grade level. 75% of it is below grade and does not interfere with the grounds or the Arboretum. Let's move on. Here's a schematic conceptual distribution of the different functions, which the green is the theater program, flexible spaces is in light yellow, the darker yellow, orange is the public programs, bathrooms are in blue, office administration is sienna, cafe is in turquoise, and the public broadcasting booths in purple, and loading and mechanical is gray. And here are access points to the building presently existing as part of this. And what's going to be improved is that basically, again, let's move on to the next slide, increasing the access points to the building from the plinth, from the grounds. Let's go back one. So the east entrance will be opened up. It will be access to this plinth and this walkway. There's going to be opening up to on the western transept to the grounds. The two side doors on the southern wing are going to be opened up, and of course the original entrance. And again, another entrance through opening up one of the bays of the retaining wall along Job's Lane. You have access to the grounds of the Arboretum, and from that through access a handicap ramp to the western transept of the existing building. Here is again a very conceptual schematic drawing showing the idea of the additions to the new building, its transparency. This is the courtyard that basically is on the northern apse of the existing building. You can see the building on this side, and mostly on the other side is cleared of the later additions. These are the new additions, which are going to be in glass with the walkway, which is an open walkway on either side, basically off of it. And on this side, this is the Peconic Broadcasting booth off of that courtyard. This is an example at Bowdoin College that Machado and Silvetti designed as a pavilion to a historic building that they had an issue of accessibility and how to enter this building. And they designed this pavilion off of this historic building where it takes you to the lower level through elevators and staircases, and you enter the building at the lower level and then come up into the main space of it. This is another at Bowdoin Museum, glass enclosed off of the existing building. These are concepts that could be translated and brought into, here's a walkway at Qasr al-Mawaji in which basically very open and transparent relationship of the new to the old without the new actually tying or connecting skylights bridge the gap between the two. Let's talk a little bit about the theater design. Again, this is the existing plan of the theater or the auditorium. The apse is closed off. These are the art storage areas existing. And proposed is a cafe to the west, flexible spaces to the east, the plinth, that's walkway off of that, the opening and addition of a gallery, which is a glass enclosed gallery on the western side, opening up the building to the grounds. This is a historic view of the auditorium as it used to be at the time of opening. This is the existing today. Move on. Some other historic photos of the auditorium space and how it is today. This is a section to the existing again. And this is a section as to what's being proposed, where again the elevation 27 is the consistent elevation throughout the plinth on the ground level and the main spaces, and from there accessing the auditorium it drops up to the lower level, elevation 14.5 for the stage and 15.5 for the stage and 14.5 for the lower level, which supports the storages, mechanicals, green rooms for the theater. Again, a section cut through the longitudinal section cut through the building shows you again the relationship of the theater to the rest of the building. And here's a cross section through it. On landscape, again, this is an existing photo back in 1912, before the southern edition was added, and how it is today in this photo with the southern edition and the forecourt further down there. We did restore the eastern fountain last year, which is going to followed up by restoration of the western fountain on the other side of the transept, which is this one over here in this historic photo, and how it is today. Overgrown. The original fountain, by the way, is the larger area, which you can see in this picture. Presently, a smaller fountain is designated for it, and even that is not operational at the moment. Here's a photo of historic photo 1912, what it is today, basically taking down most of the trees and shrubberies that are in very close proximity to the building, which actually jeopardize the structure of the building. Here are some examples of some of all the so-called garbage that has been collected throughout the years, which are air handlers and air conditionings and pools for the fountains, pumps and so forth, and these would all be cleared from the periphery of the building. The grade would be slightly built up around the eastern and western side transepts, which will bring it to the elevation 27 and eliminate the 4 steps that are there right now. Again, making those entry points accessible. And here is the site plan, overall site plan of the proposed plan, with the light blue designating the existing building and the white the new additions to the building in relationship to the site.
But the proposed floor elevation for the radio station is that
27, which is accessed again from the same plinth.
So the radio station would still be at 27.
correct.
It'll be much higher than the parking lot.
If you go back one, this is at elevation 27. There is a ramp proposed over here that would bring you to the elevation 27, and also steps. And from here, basically, the building would be accessed, of course, from the courtyard. Also, there are loading docks that have to be further developed on this side to access both for the theater and the cafe supplies and so forth.
Are there any particularly specimen trees that are going to have to be removed?
There are no specimen trees that have to be removed. The trees that are being removed or have been removed are the ones that are in very close proximity to the building that actually cause damage to the foundation of the building, such as this one over here. This one was removed last year. One of these actually fell during the storm. There's one tree that will be affected, which is at that point over there on the northern side of the property.
What kind of tree is that one?
I'm not sure what it is, but we have that information. I don't have it right now.
I just had a thought that if the tree has to be destroyed, could we have the wood milled to use in the building?
Well, cool. It's a good idea. Actually, I know of a company that does go around and especially after storms and collects old specimen trees that and uses the wood for furniture.
Really,
yes, indeed.
Losing it, it would be in the building.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good idea. That's a very good idea.
The facades, other than the glass, are they going to be all the same now? I know that each edition had a different
no, the original material are going to be restored.
So, it's going to be restored.
So for
we're
instance,
going to have the three different kinds.
There's still going to be three different kinds of material. The white brick is going to be cleaned up. It's been painted on and restored. Again, the original red brick was painted on back in the 50s, whitewashed. That's going to be cleaned up and brings much more vibrance and color to the building. And the original section transept, which is shingle, is still going to maintain its shingle.
And the broadcasting edition, that would be something that's being already used in
most probably that would be and that's design in progress, but most probably that will be something more in line with the masonry building of the original building. Now whether that's
not the white brick that is kind of
not the white brick, no. Most probably from discussions with the architects, since Atterbury was very keen on creating various patterns with bricks, they are looking at that concept of using brick and being imaginative with the patterning of the brick on that northern property to sort of anchor the building on the northern side and create more of a presence on the parish lane.
I'm not a big fan of glass boxes, but I guess
no, and actually that building, the pavilion, still is work in progress as far as the scale of it, the breaking of the massing and how that would be done. That has to further be developed.
This building gives me, I know that there are not many round elements in this building, but the existing building gives me a very round feel, curved rather than angular. I'm not an architect.
Well, the architect, for instance, is looking into the colonnade that is enclosing the plinth, basically, and the courtyard, and the columns of that to be something special, to cast, design and cast especially for this rather than stock columns. So he's looking into that. The roofs of the cafe and the flexible spaces, again, he's looking to introduce not rectilinear but curved shapes to that. So again, this is a conceptual design. All these have to be further detailed and designed and developed. But if you, I would suggest one thing to do is to Google Muchado and Silvetti and look at some of their other works and how they've dealt with some of these issues in various other projects of theirs. Mostly museums. They've established their reputation going in historic buildings and restoring and then adding on to it. And they're quite imaginative.
But I don't see the temporary structure, the outside pavilion.
That's to be basically looked at because scale of it, the location of it. Obviously, originally they were suggesting a location somewhere in this area, which is in quite close proximity to the existing building, shifting it away to the western side. Being that it's a round building, its form is not quite compatible for that space. So we're looking at options, the possibility of maybe not providing covered seating for all, but only for the band, so it would be more of a band shell with the open seating on the grounds. That has to be further developed.
That's being completely
it has to be looked at. It's not going to be developed as is presently. And that's not under the task of this architect, Machado and Silvetti. That was designed by Rockwell Group that had proposed that.
Are there going to be any green elements like solar or anything?
Not on the existing building. The existing building is basically a restoration to what existing roofs, which are shingle roofs and the slate roof with all the skylights are going to be brought back to life. The lay lights that are below that are all going to be restored to its original. There is possibility. We are pushing for leads and whatever we can gain from that. But again, that being that this is a restoration project, there's limitations. But that's always the goal to see how best we can improve the performance of the building.
That portion on the west side would be
the beauty of it is that again by taking out these additions that were on the west side and the parking, the grounds of the Arboretum is expanded. This is the side where the cafe is going to be, and the cafe is a glass enclosed structure. So once in the cafe area, you're exposed to all the Arboretum, and that's also exposed to afternoon sun, which is going to be very nice. With the walkway in front of it. So yes, you stand, and also there are all the trees there that provide the shade on the western side. But for the first time, this building will offer possibility to experience the grounds of the Arboretum from inside the building, which presently does not exist.
I have a similar comment on you about the shape of the northern addition. And then also I think that in terms of access from the parking lot, I think that I had more envisioned like more of a second entrance from the parking lot and trying to redirect traffic more into the parking lot, whereas by putting the radio station right there in the center and only allowing the access through the ramps, I'm not so sure that it's the wisest to...
Well, we've been, versus this, actually go back to that slide, versus this structure becoming some sort of an entry vestibule.
Yes.
The architect looked at many different options. At one option, we had the cafe at this point, for instance. Right. The key reasonings was, first of all, to try to limit a new footprint on the ground level as much as possible. And this is something that we had to deal with as far as the broadcasting booth and all their offices and facilities. By the way, not all of their facility is going to be in this building. They are going to be housing their staff and offices in the village hall's upper floors, which is right here. And then this is going to be the public elements of there, which is the public broadcasting booth. As far as the cafe being over there, obviously from the point of view of servicing it would make more space, more sense. But in relationship to the theater, which when theater is in use, the proximity of that to the cafe would not be very close, especially in winter time to go outdoors and then access the cafe over there. By bringing the cafe closer to the heart of the building and the transept area, it would be more functional in use. So again, these are concept. It's not finalized. The architect is still working on these things, and we have to also engage in more deliberations back and forth between functional needs and requirements of the radio station. And one of the, again, advantages of putting the booth over there on the northern side is that they have all sorts of requirements regarding energy and electricity, and especially in times of emergency, they have to be operational, and that depends on generators that are not actually housed on the site here, but housed in the village hall, and how that would be connected to the broadcasting booth facilities and still maintain an independence from the rest of the parish museum or the Southampton Centre. These were all factors that were instrumental in making these decisions.
Why does that have to be on ground level? Why can't that be on an upper floor?
The broadcasting booth is where, for instance, Bonnie Grice would be interviewing, and performers would come, and it would be a small space that they could do performances there. And also in summertime, this courtyard would be used as an outdoor seating area, which still would be exposed both to the booth and to the cafe. So the two are interconnected through the courtyard.
I didn't realize that the NPR studio or whatever it is was going to be such a hard and fast partner. I don't know when this came about. It blew by me.
True. They've been discussing this thing with us since last summer, and it's firming up now.
That seems to be really I don't know.
And also in terms of, let's say, additional path within the Arboretum, is this within the scope of survey?
Some of it is. Landscape architects, of course, this is only the preliminary schematic stage. Some of the issues that they're addressing right now are issues of accessibility of the building through the Arboretum, which is basically, for instance, opening up one of the bays of the retaining wall on Job's Lane and creating an accessible path through that and connecting to the existing. But obviously, as programs develop and the Arboretum develops further, that's something to be developed further. I don't think that at the moment they've looked at fully as to the potential of how the different portions of the site would be accessed. I think that to a great extent will lend itself to the design of the Arboretum in the future and the involvement and improvement and development of the Arboretum. And something that I've always pushed for is, which still has not been developed, is creation of a conservancy independent of the Southampton Centre that would look after the interests of the grounds of the Arboretum and programming of it.
Well, looking good.
I will update. I think that the next presentation is sometime in mid to late May, which at that point will get the more details. That's some of the questions that was brought up today. And on that note, for our next Planning Commission, we will be discussing the report by Robert Gibbs on the Southampton retail and potential of how it could be improved and developed. This report was sent to the village a couple of weeks ago, so we'll have that open for discussion on our next meeting. Thank you.